Welcome to a Thursday here in New York City. Evan and Tiki on the fan for the next 4.5 hours. We have a ton to talk about. We will, of course, get you set for Game 5 at Madison Square Garden between the Knicks and the Pacers. What happened last night in Anaheim may change everything for the New York Yankees moving forward. We'll get to that. And Juan Soto is a mess. More analyzation on how he's going to turn his season around. But, you know, T, we know that something obvious is on the line tonight, the Knicks season. That's obvious. They lose tonight, the season's over. Yes. We all get that. I think the other thing that's on the line tonight is if they lose this game, a Game 5 at Madison Square Garden to the Indiana Pacers, a team they were favored to beat, yes, in a round further than they went last year, I don't know how you could look at this season as anything other than a colossal disappointment. And that's crazy to think coming into the year because getting to the Eastern Conference Finals would have qualified as a great success. But if they lose in 5 at home to the Indiana Pacers, I think we're all coming in here tomorrow. I think we're all spending the weekend and spending the offseason bemoaning what was a disaster.
Yeah, it all changed when they beat the Boston Celtics, a team that nobody thought they were going to beat. I mean, I had them losing in 5, maybe 6. I can't remember, whatever it was. We didn't think that they were good enough to beat the Celtics, and then they did. And all of a sudden, the expectation shifted. It shifted to, all right, well, we were stuck at the second round. Well, maybe this team is good enough to be an NBA champion, especially because nobody else that was left, even though they had really good regular seasons, have championship pedigree. It was the Boston Celtics, and they knocked them out. And so disappointment is the right word. And I don't know how you go forward getting beaten 5 in the Eastern Conference Finals by the same team that knocked you out last year, and then say, well, next year we'll get them. It just doesn't feel plausible. It doesn't feel like the Boston Celtics or the Cleveland Cavaliers or anybody else is just going to stay put, and the New York Knicks are going to get significantly better a year from now. This is their window. Right? We talk about it all the time. Windows in sports and football and basketball and baseball. This is the Knicks window, and it's about to close on them.
And I'm telling you, and I say this from experience, because if you think back to those that are Mets, Knicks fans, you can share this. I'm obviously just a Mets fan in this regard, but when they went down 3-1 to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we were going into Game 5, there was this attitude of, it's likely over. Can they come back? Sure. But it's likely over. And I remember going into Game 5, we were doing the show that day, we were actually on the air in the first few innings of Game 5 because it was a late afternoon game. And I remember thinking and saying, everything changes if they lose this game compared to winning this game, because losing in your own building, losing in a 5-game series, I don't know, it feels dirty. It kind of changes your view on the season. Yeah. If you win the game and at least you force a 6th game on the road, and then the celebration occurs outside of your building, outside of your stadium, and it's also a 6th game, so it feels like a tighter series, it just changes your view. And I know as a Met fan that winning that Game 5 the way they did, it kind of eased me. It made me feel better. I was still pissed off when they lost Game 6, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it changed how I felt about that series. And so I believe that Knicks fans are going to kind of feel the same way, which is, look, losing sucks no matter how you cut it, but losing in 5 at home just feels dirty compared to losing a 6th game on the road.
Well, I hear what you're saying, because when you lose in 6, it's like, all right, at least we made it a series. When you lose in 5, that's the gentleman's sweep. It's like, yeah, we gave you one. Yeah, we just kind of eased off the gas on one of these games, and you guys happened to win. A game they had to come back to win, by the way. And so it's not as if you'll feel anything other than we got our butts kicked if you lose in 5, especially if that 5th one is at home. The energy's going to be awesome. At least I hope it's going to be awesome. What's the secondary market look like? What's the ticket situation look like?
The secondary market is still, it's very cool.
Is it tepid?
It's very tepid. But in fairness, it's still very expensive to go to this game tonight.
But again, by the way, we talked about this multiple times. That doesn't matter. Like, who cares what the secondary market is?
The arena's going to be rocking either way, T.
Right, exactly. So the point is, they're going to be rocking. You're going to have the the energy on your side. And to lose in that environment, think how depressing it's going to be to leave the Garden with a loss if you're a Knicks fan. It's just, season's over. You got months until you can even think about getting back to this point again.
Well, I'll tell you the difference between losing tonight and walking out of a depressed Madison Square Garden versus, let's say, winning tonight and getting this thing to a 6th game, or dare I say a 7th game. I think losing in 5 to a team that most Knicks fans felt they were better than coming into this series, with injuries not being a factor in derailing this series, will cause you to feel there would need to be major changes going into the offseason. And that's what's so crazy about the way this basketball season has gone. If I would have told you going into the postseason, knowing the way it was mapped out, the Knicks are going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose, we would all say Tom Thibodeau's job is safe and the core of the roster is safe. But the way things have played out, I don't think that's the truth anymore. I think if they lose this series in 5, the discussions on this radio station tomorrow, the discussions on social media, the discussions in bars are going to be, there's something off about this team. There's something that needs to change about this team. As opposed to losing in 7, I think those discussions are a lot more tepid than if they lose in 5.
But I think, Evan, some of it's going to depend on what it looks like. So if this is a hard-fought game, comes down to the last, let's say the last 2 shots of the game, and the Knicks just lose, I think what I will say, and let's say they play well. They don't have 17 turnovers like they did in Game 4, but they play relatively well, and they just lose. I'll say, you know what? We didn't give the Indiana Pacers credit. They're just better than the New York Knicks. But if they get blown out, and kind of like we saw last night with Minnesota, and it's just, all right, we gave you a game and we just toyed with you and we're significantly better than you, that's when you start saying, what do we have to do differently? And some of it's going to fall on the head coach, obviously, but I think a lot of it is going to fall on the players, the guys who over these last few games haven't shown great IQs and haven't been, the elite stars that we think that they are on paper. And the Indiana Pacers we're just better, more consistent. We talked about it yesterday. Consistency matters when you have series like this because you're seeing the same opponent over and over and over and over again. Eventually, they figure you out. And so once they figure you out, you got to find a way to be better. And the Knicks just haven't been.
This is the 4th postseason that Tom Thibodeau has been the head coach of the New York Knicks. So in this era, we'll call it the Thibodeau-Leon Rose era because the first one obviously was prior to Jalen Brunson being here. This is the 4th time they've been there. The first time they were there, they had home court advantage and they were favorites against the Atlanta Hawks. And that series was an unmitigated disaster. And I remember when the series ended, there were many Knicks fans. It was split, but there were many Knicks fans who said, as fun as this season was, as unexpected as it was, because who thought they were going to get the 4 seed and have home court advantage in the first round, the way it ended was so ugly and so bad that they won't think back to 2021, or 2022, I should say. 2021. Right. It was 2021, with any positivity. 2 years later, when they re-entered the postseason, they get out of the first round, which was a great success, beating Cleveland. And then when Milwaukee got upset, they're playing Miami, and Knicks fans were celebrating the idea of, we're playing the Heat. We have home court advantage. We should beat that team.
Right, we're supposed to win.
Same thing happens. They lose in 6. And I think most Knicks fans, despite the disappointment of losing a series they were favorites in, were just so happy, hey, we got to the second round. We hadn't been in the second round in over a decade. Hey, that's a success. As disappointing as it was how it ended. Last year, I think the way you were able to talk yourself into, okay, it wasn't a complete disaster, were the injuries. We've heard what Tommy said. They didn't lose to the Pacers. They lost to attrition. Those championship rings are our championship rings. And I got a lot of crap from Knicks fans because when the season ended, and I say, come on, guys, you got to the same place you got last time. How is this a success? You were able to rationalize because of injuries. I don't think there's any rationalizing here. Despite going to an extra round, I think losing this series, I think most Knicks fans would say no.
Well, it's because of how they've lost some of these games. Game 1, obviously, it tells you everything. Game 4, with the turnovers and the inefficiencies and just the constant stupid plays that just drive you crazy. What the narrative is going to be is they're just not good enough. Right? I know they have good players, but they're not good enough. They're not deep enough. And teams that have long benches and can play with a pace like the Pacers do, they're just going to always find a way in a series of 7 games to beat you. And so what are you going to do different? And I don't even want to start thinking about that. I don't know. I know Knicks fans don't want to start thinking about that. But if they lose in Game 5 tonight, that's what you're going to have to think about. is how do we get better? How do we do something different than what we did and what we thought was going to work, which is clearly not good enough.
I want to ask this question not to positive Tommy, but to honesty Tommy. Okay?
Well, I don't like the way you phrase that already. You're insinuating that positive Tommy is not a man of honor. He is the man of the most honor, utmost honor.
Whatever you say.
Okay.
Honesty, positivity, whatever you want to call yourself, Tommy. If tonight at Madison Square Garden, things do not go the way you expect them to go, and the Indiana Pacers close out the New York Knicks and advance to the NBA Finals, and the Knicks season ends losing 4-1 to the Indiana Pacers, can you deem this season a success?
I could deem it a success, but I would also be very disappointed because even though there is a window, a championship window, when you get this close, when you get to the final 4 teams, when you get to a conference final or a final, you got to grab the brass ring because you might not get back. And I've been here before as a Knicks fan. I've been here before with other teams I root for, and you just don't know when or if you're going to get back. Is it a success? Yes. They beat the Boston Celtics, a series that only I predicted they would win, and nobody gave them a chance. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals. They've progressed. But as a fan, I could still say, you know what, I'm disappointed because I wanted to win that chip so badly that I could taste it when I get this close.
You believe what he just said, Tiki? Because I'm kind of skeptical.
Ish.
Yeah.
Ish.
I'm ishing with you on that. It's like the pause made me think you were about to say, no, this is a disaster. And then the pause was like, well, I'd be disappointed, like a father talking to their son.
But I can see where Tommy and other Knicks fans are because it's just like you got to feel good about how well this team played for most of the season. They finished 3rd in the East. They're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Let's not forget, they haven't been here in 25 years. And so there is positivity, but I think the way that they have gotten themselves down in this series, 3-1, it's frustrating. And so you have to blame somebody. You just don't know who to blame. And it's really everybody, but the answer or the reasoning has to be simple in your mind, and the problem is it's not simple at all.
The way I would look at this, if I'm a Knicks fan, and whether it's losing tonight, whether it's losing in 6 or losing in 7, if I lose, the conversation I have to have with myself and the conversation we'll have on the radio is this the best of us or is the best yet to come? The Indiana Pacers last year, let's use them as an example. They won a series in part because the Knicks were ravaged by injuries. Right. Most of us would agree if the Knicks weren't ravaged by injuries, the Pacers were going to lose in the Eastern Conference semifinals last year. They did not make major changes. They got healthier, they got older, they got more experienced. And the Indiana Pacers have clearly made a jump. You saw that from January 1st on during the regular season. You've seen it in the postseason. And every Knicks fan watching it with their own beautiful eyes knows, wow, they made a jump. The question you're going to have to ask yourself is, can the New York Knicks, with the same head coach, Tom Thibodeau, with the same core roster, you'll make some changes, you'll improve the bench, don't get me wrong, you can make changes in this sport, but will the core and the coach grow to where the best is yet to come? And I think what's difficult is a lot of Knicks fans right now are thinking, no.
Yeah.
They're thinking this is the best. And if this is the best, then you better win now.
Yeah, because the only next step you can take with this roster as it's constructed is maybe some of these guys from the bench will start getting more minutes. Maybe they'll get more trustworthy in Tom Thibodeau's mind. But when you look at it, these guys are baked, right? Jalen Brunson is baked where he is. He's a clutch, great player. Karl Anthony Towns is baked. It's not like he's 24 years old like Halliburton on the other side. Josh Hart is baked. I'm not saying they're cooked or anything. I'm just saying they're baked. Like they're well. They're right where they need to be good, and they're not good enough. And so I think that Indiana Pacer example that you gave, where they were just kind of there, feeling it, getting some experience, and the best was still yet to come. Their best is coming now, like we're seeing it. Whereas the Knicks, this might be the top, right? This might be the ceiling as this team is currently constructed, and that's kind of, I don't know. Like, how are you optimistic about that? That's why when I listen to Tommy, I hear him saying what he said, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, you don't really believe that.
That's why I asked for honesty, Tom.
I know. It's like, you don't really believe that, dude.
We'll get to your phone calls, Knicks fans. With losing tonight, a fifth game at Madison Square Garden to the Indiana Pacers, take this fun run and ruin it completely? We'll hear from Knicks fans coming up, 888-808-1019. And one big part of this series from the outside has been the celebrities, right? The celebrities that make the trip to Indiana, the celebrities that have strong opinions on this series. Well, one celebrity has come out with a very, very strong opinion. One celebrity is pissed off about something. We'll find out who that celebrity is and what the hell they're annoyed about.